Hi everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to show you all the books that I bought since January 1st. I have around 15-ish books to talk about, so I won't go over all of them in too much detail because I have actually talked about some of them in previous videos that I will link down below, but there are some that I haven't talked about yet on my channel, so I will go into a little bit more depth with those ones. And the first book that I bought is actually one that I haven't discussed before on this channel, and that is The 10,000 Deaths of Arthur Ben by Tyler Whitesides. This is the first book in a trilogy called The Kingdom of Grit. The second and the third one are already out at the moment, so you can binge the entire trilogy if you want to, but I decided to be reasonable for this one and only buy the first book and wait to buy the second and the third one until I actually read the first one. At least that's the goal. We'll see if that happens. I'm not all too sure about that, but we'll see. In this trilogy you follow Arthur Ben. He is a thief and he sees himself as a master of heists. Someday he gets approached by somebody who wants him to do a heist for them and actually steal something from the most powerful king that the realm has ever seen. He sees this as a way to make fame for himself and really gets established as the master of heists. So he starts assembling his team with thieves, forgers, etc. But along the way he discovers that this will not only be important for his own fame, but this might also be very important for the society and for the people that live in there. So the stakes are much higher than he originally thought. This sounds very interesting. When you think about a heist, the first book that comes to mind is maybe Mistborn Era 1, but this one is maybe more if Mistborn follows Kelsier's perspective a little bit more than Vince. I also think that this will be a little bit more action-packed and a little bit more adult in nature, so I am pretty excited to start this one. I do hope that it's not too action-packed for my taste and that the characters are well developed. This wasn't on my TBR for this year, but I'll see if I can squeeze it in. Next up I have two books by the same author, and one of them was actually in my video of standalones that I want to read this year, so I won't go too deeply into that one, but the other one was more of an impulse buy again. So the one that I am planning to read this year is Alphabet of Thorn by Patricia McKillop, and then the one that was a little bit more of an impulse buy was The Forgotten Beasts of Eld by also this author. This is an author that is very well known for writing adult fairy tales, modern fairy tales, so no retellings but really her own stories. And she is often compared to Juliette Marillier, which is one of my favorite authors. So I won't go too deeply in the Alphabet of Thorn plot because you can watch that other video that I've made that I will link down below. But in The Forgotten Beasts of Eld, we follow Sybil, who is a young wizard, but she lives without the company of men. She lives with animals. So, for example, she has a boar living with her, a lion, a dragon, what else? A falcon. A lot of animals that she lives with. So you can already feel that this is fantasy that's going to have a very close connection to nature. Just if you look at the cover, you can easily see this. So she lives without the company of men, but then one night a soldier with an infant is standing before her door. And the story kind of progresses from there. I do think that this might have a little bit of romance sprinkled into it as well, which I do enjoy a lot, also in Juliette Marillier's works. So I am kind of excited for this, and I do think that I might squeak this in before the Alphabet of Thorn one. I don't know, I have a very hard time making a choice here, but these books are very thin, as you can see. So I do think that I will read these pretty fast and that I can possibly read both of these without a problem. Next up I have another first in a trilogy, and that is The City of Braz by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the first book in the Daevabad trilogy that is set in 18th century Cairo. This is definitely adult fantasy, even though I see some people being mistaken thinking it is YA, but it's definitely adult. And in this book you follow a street urchin who doesn't really believe in magic until she accidentally summons a djinn, and he takes her with him to his world. This sounds kind of interesting. I haven't read fantasies with djinns in them earlier, so I do hope that I will like this one. I've heard some mixed reviews about it, but well, I have to try for myself and see. And I do hope that if I like it, I can finish the entire trilogy this year. Next up I got a book that I actually already read by now because this was highly anticipated and I was very happy when I found it in the mail, and that is City of Lies by Sam Hawke. This is the first book in the Poison War novels, which is actually a duology, and the second book is also out, so I'm very much excited to read that one, maybe next month or the month after that, pretty soon at least. In this book, you follow a young man, and he is the best friend of the Chancellor's heir. A Chancellor in this world is something like a king. But what most people don't know is that he has a secret duty, and that is being the proofer of this Chancellor's heir. So since he was a young boy, he was being trained to detect and be resistant to poisons. This story begins when the actual Chancellor and his proofer, which is this young man's uncle, get poisoned by an unknown poison and they die. So this heir now becomes the Chancellor, and then war ensues. So this is a highly political fantasy story. I really enjoyed it. If you like political stories such as Song of Ice and Fire, but then on a much smaller scale, because of course this is only one book, then I do heavily recommend this one. And actually, if you are from Belgium or somewhere close to me and you want to have this book, this happens. So Book Depository actually sent 2 books to me by mistake. I already contacted them, but they didn't want me to send it back because that's more hassle and money than this book is actually worth. So if somebody wants it, you can message me and come and pick it up, because I have no need for 2 of these books. So please let me know that. It's a very good book, so if you're in the neighborhood, I suggest you just come pick it up. Next up, I have another book that I really want to read as soon as possible. Basically, all of these books I want to read as soon as possible, so I should probably continue saying that, but whatever. This is The Story of Silence by Alex Myers. This is a standalone book, by the way, so if you're looking for more standalones to read, as I do, then this is some that you might want to pick up. And on the back of the book it says, "There once was a lord who raised his daughter as a boy, so the family would continue to rule. But what began as deceit was found to be truth, and on that day a legend was born." So in this book, which is set in a medieval time, where the king has decreed that women cannot inherit, a daughter is born. And the lord, or the father, decides that she will be raised as a boy so that she can inherit the family land. And that daughter is named Silence, so you follow her in this story. I have seen that there is some mention of Merlin and dragons, so this is definitely going to be some epic fantasy, and I'm ready for that, so I'm very excited to read this, I hope in the first half of the year. Next up, I have another standalone, and that is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. I really love the design of this cover, by the way. So in this book that is set in 19th century New Salem, we follow 3 sisters, and they enter the suffragist movement. So in this world, witches no longer exist. They used to exist, but no longer. However, these 3 sisters want to bring that time back, and they actually want to change the suffragist movement into the witches movement. Witches is something that you always think about when you hear fantasy. It should be widespread, but in all honesty, I haven't read that many books where witches are the center of the book. I hope that this will be the case here. So I'm actually very excited to read this one again in the first half of the year. I want to read all of these in the first half of the year. We'll see if I succeed. This one has those edges that are a little bit not the same size. And I know that most people love that, but I'm a little bit annoyed by it. So I hope that it won't distract me too much while reading. Next up, again, one that I've actually already read because it was a highly anticipated read. And that was The Halfdrowned King by Linnea Hartzucker, the first book in the Golden Wolf saga, which is actually a historical trilogy. This is not a fantasy, this is historical fiction. And it's Viking based. I think that you can probably detect that from just looking at the cover and at the ship here. I will talk about this more in my wrap-up, but I actually didn't really enjoy this book, so that's too bad. And on the same note, I actually already had the second book in the series earlier than that one, and that was The Sea Queen, but I also got this one twice. So I have this one, I have an extra copy. So again, like the City of Lies book, if you want it, you can come and get it, basically. It's the second one, so if you don't have the first one, I don't know what you will do with this one, but you can have it if you want. It's a very nice cover, so there's that. Then I have a book by an author that I really do want to try, and that is Raise the Sands by Sarah Beth Durst. So Sarah Beth Durst has written the Queens of Rentia trilogy, which is a trilogy that has a lot of connections to nature. It's a forest with menacing qualities, if I'm not mistaken, that also takes an upfront role in that trilogy. But I did want to try a standalone first, and I've heard a lot of good things about this one. So I already talked a little bit about the plot, but basically you follow 2 women who enter this race. One as the trainer of the other one, who is going to ride some sort of monster. And they both enter the race because they are in desperate need of money. So I think that this will be a story with a very interesting plot, but because both women have a very elaborate backstory, I do think that this will be very character focused as well. So I'm very interested to give this one a try. Next up I have another standalone. So I've done a very good job in buying standalones in this haul. I'm very proud of myself. And that is Cersei by Madeline Miller. This is a beautiful cover, by the way. I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but I'm very happy that I will have this one on my shelf. And also the naked book is just pretty. Well, I'm guessing that most of you guys have seen these covers already because this is a very well-known book. In this story you follow Cersei. Cersei is the daughter of the gods, but she doesn't really have much divine to her, so she gets expelled. She lives in the human world. She's very lonely, so she tries to befriend some of these humans. From what I've heard, there is definitely a romance going on in this book, which I enjoy most of the time, so I'm very excited for this one. And if I like this one, I will probably read a lot more Greek myth retellings this year. There are a lot coming out this year that I am quite excited for. Next up I have a collection of short stories, and I actually don't read short stories, so I hope that this will be my thing. But this one is the Mythic Dream, and on the back it says, "These are dreams of classic myths, bold reimaginings of the stories we tell about God and kings, heroes who shaped nations, the why and how of the world." So I feel if I like short stories, this will be a collection that I will enjoy a lot. And the reason that I picked this one up is because one of the authors that I want to try this year is T. Kingfisher, and I wanted to try the standalone The Raven and the Reindeer, but I couldn't really get my hands on that one. But she has actually written a short story in this collection, and a lot of other very famous authors as well. So they say featuring stories by Seanan Maguire, Naomi Novik, Anne Leckie, Rebecca Roanhorse and more. So if I like short stories, I think that I will read some favorites in here, and I also hope that I will sort of get to know some authors that I didn't have on my radar yet, because there are some authors featured here that I have never heard of before. So that's kind of exciting. I hope that I will find some that I also like and that they might have written some standalones or series that I've never heard of. And then lastly, I need to show you an entire series, and that is Memory, Sorrow and Thorn by Ted Williams in Dutch. So this is the first one, very thick. This is the second one. And then we actually have the third one, which is split into two parts. So very thick if that would be in one book. I actually wanted to have the English editions of Memory, Sorrow and Thorn, but as some of you might know, Book Depository wasn't shipping to Europe for a while, and I didn't know how long that would take. And then I saw these used for 10 euros for the 4 of them. So I decided that's too good of a deal to let pass, and I just decided to buy them. They are in perfect condition, so I do hope that the translation is good. But if that's the case, I will read these very soon because I'm very excited. This is traditional fantasy. You follow a kitchen boy here. I think his name is Simon. And then a war ensues, and all of a sudden he has a very important role. So I think that the chosen one trope is very strong in this one, which I do enjoy most of the time. So very excited for this one as well. Okay, I completely forgot that I also have this book, and that is The Invasion of the Tearling. This is the second book in the Queen of the Tearling series. I haven't read the first one. I bought the second one because I found it used for 10 euros, and they said it was the hardcover, and it's not, it's the paperback. To be honest, I don't know a lot about this series. I just heard about it a long time ago, and I thought it was very interesting. I think it's about 2 queens in a parallel universe. I could be mistaken, I could be thinking about another book. If you've read this series, please let me know what it's about and if it's worth it, because it's not on my TBR this year. It might be next year, I don't know. But I also want to know if it's worth it to track down the hardcover for this one, or if it's not that good of a series and I'm fine with just a paperback. So those were all the books that I bought in January. I'm highly excited about all of these. I'm very happy that I got my hands on them. Please let me know if you've read any of them or if you're also anticipating to read one of those this year. And do not forget to message me if you want to have one of those 2 books that I have doubled. You never know, and otherwise they'll just be catching dust on my shelves. I hope you enjoyed the video and see you next time. Bye!